And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
All right, it's August. Greetings and a good Monday afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online, and driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. Find them at stokesvw.com. Find us on the JB and Goldwater app. You can download that, and it is free. You can watch and listen to our program daily there. You can always go back and check us out. You can find us across all social media platforms at JB and Goldwater. You can find us on Twitter individually at Sports Media JB and at Darren Goldwater. And you can always head to our webpage, our website, whatever you want to call it, on the internet, www.jbandgoldwatershow.com. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It is also our text line, and it is open and available to all of you. Send us a note if you're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever. And Darren will pop you into the program like he's already done that to Clint this afternoon. Welcome back from vacation, Clint. And we've got Wes Mitchell joining us with Gamecock Central at 12:30. David Cloninger at 1:05 today. We've got a bunch of college football stuff to get to. Storylines as preseason camp is set to go at the end of the week for pretty much every program in college football. We've got some Olympics. We've got the Kumar Rocker stuff to discuss. So it's another full day on our program. But first and foremost, good afternoon to my friend Darren Goldwater. He looks like he has recovered from a 20th anniversary party at the Dog and Duck this weekend.
It was a really good time. I was only at the one at Bell Hall, so we didn't make it to the two other locations. But from what we understand, it was equally fun at all of them. It was packed. I mean, thanks to anyone who came out. There were a whole bunch of folks from 20 years, 2 decades of Dog and Duck that were backing around. One of them, a good friend of the owners, a good friend of ours from LA. She flew back in. No one even knew she was coming. So that was cool. It was a good Saturday, a bunch of friends, and then Sunday spent at the pool. And then today, you think college football changed last week? Well, a high schooler just decided not to play senior year of high school. And the number one quarterback recruit of next year is enrolling now at Ohio State. Quinn Ewers, that broke, 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, literally just a few minutes ago. I'm good for him. He's earned it. He's a great player. I don't like it. I wish that he couldn't do this. The greatest days of my life were playing high school sports, and I could literally give you 1,000 other people that would agree with that. I don't like it at all, and I don't have to like it. But good for him. He's going to head to Ohio State, and we'll see what happens there. I don't know how much he'll play this year, if he plays at all. Mm-hmm. But I feel for his teammates in high school. I'm sure most of them support him. I'm sure there's some who will probably resent this, and I don't blame him for that either. It's just one of those situations where you can do it, and you've done it, and there you go. But I don't.
If I was his teammate, I'd get it. He's going to go make money, a lot of money, even if he just red shirts. He's going to make money, and he can't do it down in Texas.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to go make money. Again, good for him. I'd probably be one of the teammates that said, best of luck to you, but appreciate you leaving us high and dry 2 weeks from the season. That wouldn't make me very happy at all. But good for him. Congratulations to Quinn Ewers. I hope this decision works out for him. And I think the national conversation that's spurning off of this is kind of fear related. Oh my God, are we going to see this all over the place? I think the answer to that is no. There's just, it's not, there will be prospects that come along like this. This is not going to become some epidemic or whatever you want to call it of its own, Darren. I don't believe it will.
I don't think so, because I think NIL will get down to all states at the high school level sooner than later. Because if he was in a different state other than Texas, one that allowed high schoolers to profit, it's very possible that he wouldn't be making this move anyway.
Right, exactly. And we also have to remember one thing. NIL is all about what the market says you're worth, and there just aren't that many high school kids that are worth money right now. They got to do something. So, I mean, this NIL thing, we have to remember is it's so new. And like anything that's new, there's always a come back to earth moment with everything in life. Like, we're excited about it right now. We don't really know what the future is going to look like. You know, are there going to be kids who are making millions of dollars or thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars, whatever it is? Is this going to make them skip their senior seasons in high school? Is this going to make them, you know, not play hard in college? I don't know the answers to any of that. We'll find those answers in due time. But, you know, I think at the end of the day, these are businesses that are, well, and in his case, we have to remember NIL, there's a bunch of different sides to it. Like, if you want to make money because you have a craft that you're good at, in addition to the sport you play, there's no reason that shouldn't be allowed, period. That's always been frustrating to me. You know, the endorsement side of it, that money is paid by a business. So like Darren, you and I, we run businesses, and, you know, we might look at, a high school kid or a college kid, say Kevin Harris or say DJ Uyunglele or whoever it is, and decide we're going to invest our marketing dollars in these kids. And after 6 months, after a year, we look at the return and it's just not what we thought it would be. Well, guess what? We're going to pull those dollars and put them somewhere else. So the market in time will determine how successful this is, like anything else.
Yeah. I couldn't possibly agree more. I mean, that's the way it goes. And we'll see. I mean, we'll see. I think certain towns, certain places, certain states will have high school athletes that are more valuable than others, because just that's the nature of it. But
sure,
the dollars are definitely in college.
Well, I mean, you think about Clowney. Like, if this was in place when Clowney was coming out of high school, you know, is this something that would have tempted Jadeveon to skip his senior season, to leave, to go to another state that allowed it or something? I don't know the answer to that, and I'm not going to speculate on it. But just strictly from an NIL standpoint, a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, could he have profited in high school off of his name, image, and likeness? You betcha. I mean, he was a once-in-a-generation player. I mean, there isn't a Jadeveon Clowney every year. There's just not.
Nope.
So, you know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not going to become some, like, Darren, there might be a kid that plays at Wando that hits 500 on the baseball team, or a kid that plays at Bishop England that's all state, top notch, throwing for 4,000 yards quarterback in a 10-game season. And that might be a big deal down here.
Yeah. Good for you, bud.
But
money.
Is he going to give me a return on my investment? You see what I'm saying? So I mean, it's, it is what it is. We'll have to see how it all works out. I saw Bojangles this weekend has, so DJ Uyunglele had that first NIL deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then we asked the question, all right, how are they going to offset this, right? Because they're going to have to get somebody from South Carolina. There's a Bojangles right next door to Williams-Brice Stadium, for goodness sakes. And they certainly have done that. There's, I think, 4 football players now. One of them is Kevin Harris. And Aaliyah Boston, of course, signed last week. So I think there's 5 total representatives from South Carolina. Probably a smart move on their part.
I mean, they may as well spread the dollars around. You don't want to upset one of the fan bases in this state.
I don't you want. All right, so have you seen the boxes they have, Bojangles, like the team boxes for Clemson and Carolina? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so they, the big tailgate boxes you can order.
Yeah.
So I what I'm wondering is if I pull up to Bojangles this year to grab a box of chicken and biscuits and a couple of fixins. They're not sides, boys and girls. They're called fixins without the G. Will Kevin Harris's face be plastered on that box?
If
Probably.
you buy one around Columbia, maybe. If you buy one around Clemson, probably not. But yeah, you're going to see that stuff.
Exactly. I think that's cool. I think that's neat.
Mm-hmm.
And he can have his Carolina jersey on in that photo. DJ Uiagalelei cannot do that at Clemson. They will not let you use their logo up there.
Yeah. He can
So
wear a big old orange jersey that has number 5 on it, and you can guess what jersey it is.
that's right. That's right. Just not the Clemson logo. But though, Bojangles themselves, they do have rights to the Clemson logo. I know that because last year, we ordered a box of Bojangles before one of the games in Columbia. Weren't doing a lot of prepping for tailgating last year with the pandemic stuff going on, so we just ordered Bojangles. They literally gave it to us in a Clemson box. I looked at the lady. I said, "That's Williams-Brice Stadium right there." She said, "Well, we're all out of the other ones." I said, "Well, then give us a regular box." Are you kidding me? It was unbelievable. That's bad marketing.
Yes.
So, anyways, all right, 843-321-8893. Clint, nobody talks much about how much NIL will affect high school sports. We were just playing playfully on Twitter a few minutes ago with David Shelton. That is something we'll talk to him about coming up in the next few days. We'll get Shelton back in full gear in our program weekly to talk about the high school boys and girls around the low country, and looking forward to that. We'll get to some Olympic stuff in a minute, but Darren, let's remind people that football not only starts practice in August, they start playing games in August, certainly at the high school level, which again, we'll talk to David Shelton about, but also at the collegiate level.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give you a quick reminder of what's coming up now in 26 days. August the 28th, Big Ten and Pac-12 football starts. Illinois and Nebraska at 1 o'clock on Fox on Saturday, August the 28th. I don't know how either one of those teams will be this year, but it's Big Ten football on Saturday, August the 28th on a nationally televised game on Fox. UCLA that afternoon is also going to host Hawaii, if you'd like to call it that, out there in the Rose Bowl. And then Thursday, September, and there's other games that day. I've just picked out a couple of notables. But before we get to the 4th of September, when Clemson and Carolina and most other programs around the country will kick off, there are other games of interest on the 2nd and the 3rd of September. If any of you may have forgotten, Boise State at UCF in a Big 12 membership play-in game, maybe? I don't know. I'm just speculating. But it's 7 o'clock on ESPN that Thursday night. They're calling it the Bounce House, remember? And that's how it's listed on ESPN's schedule as well online down there in Orlando. How about the Citadel and Coastal at 7 o'clock that night up there in Conway? Dogs just got done playing. They played the spring season. Quick turnaround. We'll talk to Brent sometime this month and see how everybody's feeling downtown with the Bulldogs program. South Florida and NC State at 7:30 on Thursday, September the 2nd. Well, is that an important game in the grand scheme of things? Nah, probably not. I mean, I think NC State's going to be better than some people think this year, but that's also, for Clemson fans, the opener for Jeff Scott at South Florida. And let's remember that Bobby Bentley is down there as well as the passing game coordinator. So, there's some interest in that game on the ACC network that Thursday night. East Carolina at App State at 7:30 on September the 2nd. Darren, why is that important? Well, on September the 11th, the Gamecocks will head to Greenville to take on the Pirates. What will they look like at Bank of America Stadium? It's a neutral site game in Charlotte, 2 days before Georgia and Clemson also play in Charlotte. And then Bowling Green at Tennessee that night at 8 o'clock. Tennessee should beat the crap out of Bowling Green, but it's also the first game for Josh Heupel as the head coach of the Volunteers. What are we going to learn? Probably not a lot, but at least you'll get a glimpse as to what maybe a Vols offense might look like this year if you understand offensive football and play calling and things like that. We'll also get a look at the defense without Henry To'oTo'o, who's at Bama, baby. So keep our eyes on that one. And then Friday night, September the 3rd, Darren, Duke is at Charlotte. This one is of great interest in the Big Ten because Northwestern might be a pretty good team this year, and maybe so might Michigan State. They had a down year, but Michigan State's at Northwestern at 9 o'clock that night on ESPN. But I think the one that everybody's circling is at 6 o'clock on ESPN, September the 3rd, and that is North Carolina at Virginia Tech. What type of foot did the Heels get off on with Sam Howell as their quarterback?
A lot of interesting games right there leading up to the September 4th Clemson-Georgia one. You mentioned App State ECU at Bank of America. There's a lot of interest on that from both sides. Is Mike Houston going to have ECU where he typically would for a third-year program, which would be significantly better than his first 2 years? That's been his track record. And my hunch is yes. App State thinks they're back in the hunt for the Sun Belt. Are they? And then from the Gamecocks perspective, you'll get some type of a glimpse at what ECU actually does look like. North Carolina, Virginia Tech, you mentioned it. Of course, that's interesting. Northwestern won their side of the Big Ten last year. That makes that interesting, how they look. I'm not sure what you learned from Tennessee because I'm not sure how much they show you against Bowling Green. Because I don't know a whole heck of a lot about Bowling Green to tell you just how much they can put up a fight anyway. So I don't know what you learn from Tennessee. I think you learn a lot more about them in the coming weeks.
I think so. And that week 2 game for the Vols is against Pittsburgh. It is at Neyland Stadium. Pittsburgh is a team that you probably need to be careful with if you're Tennessee, although I like them to win the game. And then the following week against Tennessee Tech, I mean, by all accounts, they should be 3-0 heading to the Swamp in week 4. Tennessee should be. What will we have learned through those 3 weeks? I don't necessarily know. I think it'll be mixed results as far as how you evaluate how they'll perform in the SEC. But I don't think that the win-loss column will be too mixed. I do think they'll be 3-0. So we'll have to see. One of the questions, though, with some of these preseason storylines, at least in my opinion, are who are maybe some potential playoff crashers. Because by the way, Clint, I just saw your note there. I could see Pitt beating UT. They've lost a ton of guys to the portal. You're exactly right. I could absolutely see that. I'm not necessarily going to pick it that Pittsburgh walks into Neyland, but I could see that happening, certainly. Mm-hmm. All right, but if we had to pick some playoff crashers, like, okay, probably want to keep an eye on these teams in the preseason. Make sure there's no major injuries coming out of camp, no major COVID stuff, Darren, or some big-time transfer, all the weird, wacky things that could happen in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then we get into the season and we go, okay, these teams could be getting themselves into the mix with teams like Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, the ones that we all kind of expect, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to like part of what I have to say here. I see this 2 ways. One side is who's got the best opportunity to make that early statement. This happens every year. Mm-hmm. There's some team that comes out and punches themselves through the door in the first month, and everybody goes, whoa, this team could be a playoff contender. And then there's another program, generally, or 2, where you look up in October and you go, okay, they're 6-0. Let's see here. This team's pretty good. So there's kind of like that gradual build up, and then there's that let's put our name on the map real early. So I think that there's, when you talk to some of the national guys out there, Darren, I think that there's always a trend to want to see who performs well from the West Coast. Mm-hmm. Simply because they generally aren't represented in the playoff, and there hasn't been a West Coast team in 4 years. I mean, Washington was the last program in there, and I think that was the 2016 regular season, right? So, and then Oregon's the only one to ever make it besides that in the first playoff back in 2014. So, who punches that door, or who has that opportunity early on? Now, I think it's Penn State. And I'm not saying that because you're sitting here. I'm saying that because of this reason. I don't think that what you saw at Penn State last year is representative of where that program is from a talent standpoint, in any way, shape, or form, or where they are in the pecking order of the Big Ten. It was a strange year for a lot of programs out there.
They outscored the competition by about 200 points and finished with whatever 4 games. I think they won 4 games last year.
Well, they got better as the year went on, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And Darren, we had these conversations a lot early in the year. It was like, what the hell happened to Penn State? Well, let me tell you what can happen to Penn State. Not predicting it. Haven't gotten to that point yet. But they could go to Wisconsin and beat the Badgers week 1 in Camp Randall. You don't ever know what's going to happen in week 1. But they could do it. That's not like a slam dunk for Wisconsin. They're going to beat Ball State in week 2. And then if you beat Auburn in week 3 at home and what I think is going to be a whiteout in Happy Valley,
yep,
you're 3-0 with wins at Wisconsin and home against Auburn. Now, pump the brakes on Auburn's not that good. We don't know. I don't know that last year what we saw out of Auburn is indicative of who they are. They have a new coach. They got a new defensive coordinator, formerly one of the best in the country in Derek Mason. I don't know what he's going to bring. There's a lot of unknowns about the Tigers. Mike Bobo, of course, is running the offense.
But if you beat them early and there's still a lot of unknowns, it still feels good until Auburn hits that slide and you're like, okay, no, last year is indicative of who they are. They haven't turned that corner yet. Bo Nix is still right. Bo Nix. Until that all takes shape, if you beat Wisconsin and you beat Auburn, then people around the country are sitting there saying, okay, maybe Penn State is a legit challenger to Ohio State because that's still sitting out there in front of them. Iowa State is another interesting one that has an opportunity early with Iowa.
That's a great point. I didn't put them on my radar. I've got State and I've got A&M. I mean, A&M was knocking on the door last year. And this isn't some exclusive list, Darren. We could sit here and talk about this all day long, right? Iowa State is an interesting one. A&M, of course, very interesting because although they lost their quarterback, they're still expected to be really, really good. And there were a lot of people, and I was one of them. I'm not saying they should have been in, but if you go back to last December, I was making the case alongside a lot of people that maybe A&M deserves to be in this playoff based on what they did, 9-1 in a 10-game SEC season. They'll be 3-0 to start. They're probably going to be 4-0. They're going to beat Kent State. They're going to beat Colorado. They're going to beat New Mexico. They're going to beat Arkansas. They got a weird game there against Mississippi State, and then they've got Alabama. And that's but guess what? You want to know what they share in common with all those first 6 games: Kent State, Colorado, New Mexico, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Bama. There are no road games.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, I mean, there are no true road games. This could be a 6-0 team going into Bama. Okay, you lose to Bama. You're back in a 12-game schedule, folks. I mean, they were right there knocking on the door last year. Watch out. That's the gradual one I'm talking about. That's the gradual, hey, they're 6-0. Now they got to play Alabama. Oh, at home. We'll see. But Penn State, to your point, you're right. Just the way that it works, the name brand, Auburn and Wisconsin, if you beat them and you're 3-0, regardless of where Auburn is after 8 games, okay, they're 4-4 or something like that, not a special year. It doesn't matter. You still made that noise early in the season to put yourselves on the map. I mean, if they're 3-0 through that schedule with a win on the road at Camp Randall, Darren, you're talking about a program that's easily ranked in the top 15, maybe if not higher.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it all comes down to if Penn State's in that position, if they put themselves in that position at the end of the day, it comes down to what happens against Ohio State. Because only one of them is going to the Big Ten championship game. Right. So at the end of the day, that's all that's going to matter. But can they get some national attention, some national belief behind them, Penn State? Yes, they can. And does their recruiting success over these last couple of weeks buoy that into the regular season and then carry into maybe another recruiting class? That's possible. That's a very blue and white sided interpretation of this conversation, but it's possible. But again, it comes down to what happens there at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A 3-0 start there. And it could be, they'd have a case for, based on resume after 3 games with that record, maybe the best resume in the country. It doesn't necessarily mean they'd be the best team, but hey, based on what we've accomplished on the field, unless, somebody like Miami beats Alabama, which I don't know how many folks are pretty, but here's the thing with that. Like, I'm trying to speak more along the lines in what I think is possible language. And I do think it's possible that that Bama's 3-0. This is my opinion, period, the end. I don't think it's possible that Miami is 3-0, even with that Alabama. They have a weird start to the year, remember? Alabama in Atlanta, App State, or are they in Atlanta? Yeah, they're in Atlanta. App State, and then Michigan State. It's like the thing with Miami is they could be, I don't know if they could be 3-0, but they could be 2-1, or they could be 0-3. You know, you just don't ever know do they have the talent to be 3-0?
If they're 0-3, there are problems at Miami.
But would that shock you?
They're expected to be competitive, but not in necessarily the same level as Clemson, but closing that gap, right? We hear that all the time. Is North Carolina it? Is Miami it? If Miami starts 0-3, that's a problem. It's a problem for Clemson. It's a problem for the ACC, and it's certainly a problem for Miami.
Huge problem. I mean, the question though is far. Like, I don't think that happens. I do think Miami starts 2-1. I think they lose to Bama. They beat App State. They beat Michigan State. But based on recent Miami history, like, would it shock you if you looked up and you're like, oh my God, they're 0-3 or they're 1-2? Like, I can't say that it would shock it would be shocking. But it wouldn't be one of those things where I just couldn't believe it. They've proven over the years they can stumble, but they are uberly talented. I don't know that they're talented enough to beat Bama, but if they did, they certainly would have the resume of all resumes to begin the season. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know that this year's going to be much different from other years, Darren. I do think we still have those 4 or 5 programs. You know, I'd say, let me expand that. I'd say we have those 6 or 7 programs because you got to get 4.
We're not close. We're not close to the point of entering a season where you say there's more than 6 or 7 teams that can compete for 4 spots. No. Like, we're not next year. We're not in that boat either. So right now, that's still the way it is. It's just a matter of who are going to be 4, 5, 6, and 7. Because right now, and I think it's very safe to say this is the same thing that we could say next year, Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson are 3 that are going to be competing for those 4 spots. Then it's a matter of 4, 5, 6, and 7. So today, next year, probably the year after that, I don't think much changes heading into the season from that standpoint. Yeah,
probably not. You know, I because of Spencer Rattler, I'm going to throw Oklahoma in there. Certainly,
this year I'd put them in that 4 category. Yeah. No doubt, absolutely. But next year, I don't know. But it'd be somebody else.
And then Georgia, if JT Daniels is good, Georgia is absolutely in there. You know, I mean, if JT Daniels is average, Georgia is still in there. If he's below average, Georgia's an elite program who's probably going to cough up a game somewhere that's going to cost them the playoff.
And there's your list. So right there, we've got our 5. We've got Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. We both agree on Oklahoma and Georgia are possible, so they can be in this conversation. So that's 5. Iowa State is possible, so that's 6. Okay.
Yeah.
A&M, maybe. Right? You beat Alabama, like Jimbo Fisher thinks they're going to be competitive and start doing. Okay.
Do you think, like, I think Iowa State is really good, but are they that level good? I have my doubts.
I have my doubt. That's why I'm not putting them, in the 3 range.
Yeah.
And they compete for that playoff spot. Yeah. If they win the Big 12, which is going to be them or Oklahoma. Probably.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, if you win the Big 12, what's left of it? Remember, they beat Oklahoma last year, 37-30. So, but of course, that was early in the year. They lost to them in the Big 12 championship game, but they beat them early in the year. So we'll see. It's fun to be talking about it again. I know that. We'll get to a medal count in just a little while. There are Olympic updates to pass along to you. Some of those pertain directly to a former South Carolina Gamecock basketball player. Of course, you probably know who that is. But up next, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. He will recap this weekend's recruiting cookout at Carolina and give us his final storylines as Gamecock football is set to take the field this Friday. So hang tight. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen. We'll be right back.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to DCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Ferry Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Hey, South Carolina, what's going on? This is Patrick Davis, and you are listening to my friends JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
12:32. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes of Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. JB and Darren, and joined here now by Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. You may have just heard one of my great friends, Mr. Patrick Davis, who is now a resident of Nashville, Tennessee. But in 18 days, he will be a resident of the Midlands because he'll be jamming out Big Old Cock and all the other tunes at the Gamecock Central. What are y'all calling this? Kickoff party?
Yeah, the Gamecock Central kickoff party. August 20th, Still Hand Brewing. Officially kicks off at 7 o'clock, but we're gonna have a little pregame party before. So if you're off work early or you're just hanging out, just come on up there whenever you're ready. Plenty of drinks and plenty of food, I can promise.
All right. Now here's the $1 million question, dude. Have you worked out some type of deal? I know it's at a brewery, but have you worked out any type of deal to have whiskey jam?
Yes, that I think I can officially say that's it. There's a good chance there's going to be some whiskey jam available.
Okay,
I guess is probably what I should say. But I think that's going to be on the ticket there.
Well, if there's a pregame party and Patrick's involved, I know there will be whiskey jam there. I'm just asking if it'll be available to the public. You know, unless you drink it all, which that could happen too, I guess.
Yeah, we're working on that. I think especially if you are going to be one of our VIP folks, which I believe VIP tickets are going on sale tomorrow on Tuesday. So everybody should be on the lookout for that. Lots of perks with being a VIP. We're gonna have limited tickets, so go ahead and purchase those tomorrow once we get them out.
Good. We'll help you promote that. Darren, can we help him promote that? Is that cool?
I'm typing it up right now.
Okay. We'll stay on it until this thing's sold out. You let us know when you sell out, and then we'll stop.
Well, and the great thing is, man, if anybody just wants to come, it is a free event. So it's not something that you have to pay to come to. There's going to be like your regular crowd there for still hands, but then if you want the VIP perks, you can pay. So essentially, rather than just do like tickets for everybody, we said if you want to come for free, obviously you got to buy your own beer, all that stuff, then you can. Or if you want to get the VIP treatment, you can pay a little bit more, but then have there's a lot of perks that just come included with paying that price, including some free beer, some free food, some time on Gamecock Central. So I would go the VIP route. I know it's going to be hot. You're going to be under a tent. There's going to be fans if you're VIP. So to me, that's the experience. But we'll let people make their own choice because we wanted it to be open to anyone who wants to come. Again, we are presenting the party, but you don't have to be a Gamecock Central subscriber. You don't have to be a Gamecock Central reader. You can be TBS for life. You can be all about another blog or whatever. We just want all Gamecock fans to come out.
It's like when you go to a game, right? If you want to be at the club level, it's still the game experience, but it's just better. So VIP is the still experience.
Yeah,
better.
Except they don't let you into Williams-Brice Stadium for free.
True. But yeah, it's going to be a good time for all.
Yeah.
We'll even let Nationals fans come if they want.
Oh, well, that's so kind. And Penn State fans.
Yeah.
And Dodgers fans now. Yeah. Go Dodgers.
Oh God, here we go. Well, that's great. We'll try to make it up there. I can't make any promises on that. With two young bucks running around the house, you never know. But I'm going to try to make it up there. So I'll keep in touch with you on that. Hopefully PD brings down his better looking half, certainly in Lauren, and better sounding. I tell him all the time, her voice is much better than his. So hopefully Lauren's going to make it as well.
I heard Lauren on the radio here, by the way. I think that was
her new song. Her new song. She got a new one out.
Yeah, because I was listening to the radio and it was Sunday afternoon, I think. I was like, wait a second, that's Lauren Jenkins. And I became aware of Lauren when Patrick was doing his virtual concerts last year during quarantine. And, he would get on there and play some. She would get on there and sing some. And, yes, super, super talented. And she opened at one of his events, I think a couple of years ago, the Christmas deal that he does a lot of times. So very, very talented is Miss Lauren Jenkins. So if you're a Patrick Davis fan, you can also go support Lauren Jenkins. I think she's on Spotify and Apple Music and all those different things as well.
Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. All right, Wes, let's get to it. I do want to get to some storylines. Media Day is coming up on Thursday. How many of these media things we're going to have? You had the golf last week. This week you get to talk to the players at least. Hey, and Wes, after this, you're going to actually get to talk to the players more throughout the season. It's pretty cool for the first time in a while. So that's exciting. And then we've got practice opening on Friday. But before we get there, Carolina did wrap up their cookout this weekend, along with what seems like every other team in the country. But there are some good reports coming from there. I don't think any commitments have been made, at least not publicly. We haven't seen the Shane Beamer tweet to this point, but kind of summarize what happened on campus this weekend and what it means to the future of the program.
Yeah, this is the final recruiting event of what was the busiest recruiting summer, I would say, in program history. The Carolina Cookout is what they called it. Very laid-back event, not one of these like high-stakes recruiting visits where coaches are, trying to push you to commit or anything like that. It was a mix of guys who are already committed and then a lot of actually younger top-tier prospects that I think it was good for South Carolina to go ahead and get on campus as well. So smaller event, about 25 prospects plus their families. And, man, I think these things are good as far as building relationships. The guys were able to sort of do a golf cart tour of the campus. So there is a recruiting aspect where you're learning about the school, but it's kind of through the lens of just a laid back day. They had food trucks out there. They had games. They had the pool. You could do a scavenger hunt, optional scavenger hunt if you wanted. Now there were some guys like Landon Sampson had never visited before. So he got more of like the full tour experience, like a traditional unofficial visit. But for most of the guys, this was more about playing some cornhole, playing some wiffle ball, competing with the coaches, and eating some good food and just hanging out.
Any additions to the upcoming class expected from this event?
Well, I mean, I think you got to look at James Pierce, the kid out of Charlotte, an edge rush prospect that South Carolina, I feel like, has been closing in on, for some time now. They offered him in the summer. They're really high on him. He's really like one of these traditional 6'5", 220 pounds, super athletic edge rush type guys. Very underrated prospect, I think. And, they had him on campus earlier this summer and got him back in for the cookout. I think they're in good shape there. And then I think not a guy that's going to commit really anytime too soon, but just to get Antonio Williams back on campus. Dutch Fork kid right down the road. He actually had practice and like a media day of his own there at Dutch Fork. They had like a Meet the Foxes day or something as well, like a lot of the high schools do. So, to me, I just think that's a very positive sign for South Carolina that he made the effort, even with a super busy day, to get over there for part of the cookout, and had some family members with him as well. And again, he's not a kid that says a whole lot. He's not a kid that gets all caught up in the recruiting process. So to get him over for like a laid back day, probably a really big positive for South Carolina.
What other programs is he considering at a semi or very semi-serious or serious level?
Yeah, I think the main two right now are South Carolina and Ole Miss. He's got a very extensive offer list, but those are the two that have really been singled out to me for a long time now, for months actually. And obviously South Carolina's right down the road, has a need at wide receiver, and they've been recruiting him literally as hard as you can recruit anybody. So obviously, you got Justin Stepp, a local guy. You got Eric Kimry, who's a Dutch Fork grad. They've sort of tag teamed this recruitment here and have done a great job. Then you got Ole Miss, a place obviously that is able to sell the Lane Kiffin offense. And there are some connections to Ole Miss there. His mom went to Ole Miss. His stepdad, many of you remember, Murphy Holloway. He went to Ole Miss. So there are Ole Miss ties here. Clemson has yet to offer. They are recruiting him, pretty heavily for a non-offer. If they offer, I think they become a factor. The longer they wait, the less of a factor I think they maybe are, in my opinion. There's some other schools, maybe in Auburn, Georgia. They've both offered. He visited there. I could see him setting up official visits to those schools as well. But right now, we've been hearing South Carolina and Ole Miss and been reporting South Carolina and Ole Miss for months now. And then lo and behold, he sets his first two official visits. Where are they to? South Carolina and Ole Miss. So all that sort of tracks as far as what we're hearing behind the scenes and then the actions publicly as well.
Wes, did anybody come off the board this weekend?
You mean in terms of committing elsewhere type deal?
Yep.
Yeah. DeAndre Martin, the defensive lineman that is originally he's playing ball in Virginia, but is from North Carolina, or I might actually have those switched. Either way, DeAndre Martin committed to Virginia Tech. He was down to VT in South Carolina. He was someone South Carolina actually, they wanted him. They would have taken him. Was down to those two. Most people here thought it was 50-50 coming off his recent visit as well. But he goes with VT. And then Davin Jackson, the Sumter kid, not someone we were tracking as much from a South Carolina perspective. We've been maybe tracking some other defensive tackle prospects a little bit harder as far as that goes, but he committed to NC State. So, those are, I guess, probably the two guys. Jalen Glover, running back in Florida. He's been a major target for South Carolina. He is not committed yet, but he is actually scheduled to commit August 6th, and most signs are pointing to Florida there. So, Florida kid, grew up pulling for Florida. I would place pretty much all my money on that being the Gators. So that's a guy we would project to be off the board here soon. And Abdul Carter committed to Penn State over the weekend. That was one that Chris Clark had projected on our board to Penn State right before that happened. So, yeah, there are some guys, I'm guessing because August camp is starting up, that are getting their recruiting processes out of the way.
12:44 on this Monday afternoon. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. More on the recruiting front is available at Gamecock Central if you're a member. And if you're not a member, you probably need to be, because now we get to the season, and that's what we're going to talk about. with the remainder of this conversation here, Wes. Storylines kind of leading into the start of camp. The start of camp is fun, right? We're always interested. We're always excited to see the guys of whatever programs we pull for get back out there. You're not necessarily going to learn a whole bunch in the first 48 to 72 hours of those young men returning to the field. But the storylines will be there as camp starts, and those will all progress as camp does. So what are you most interested in seeing starting this Friday?
Yeah, I think I'm ready to start to continue to learn a little bit more about this offense and what it's going to be schematically. I don't know how much we're actually going to be able to glean, but I imagine we'll sort of get little pieces here and there. Marcus Satterfield talked last week after the golf tournament, and I thought gave one of his most expansive answers yet of sort of what they're trying to do on offense. And, I think we'll continue to learn a little bit more as far as players go and position groups. How does it shake out in the defensive backfield? I think that's obviously a question mark. South Carolina came in with some shortages there, just even purely on numbers when Shane Beamer got here. So they've had to completely restock that. Karan Prunty, what are the early returns on him? Who's going to play the nickel back? Who's in line to play safety? I tend to think when they kick off that Prunty and Cam Smith will be your starters at cornerback, but there's going to be so many moving parts there, so many open position battles there. That's probably the position I'll be most curious to see. And then obviously wide receiver, that's going to be a question mark until it's not. How much progress has a Decarrion Joyner made? Can Amarian Brown come in and help this team a lot early on now that he's healthy after being banged up in the spring? Who are some of the young guys that were freshmen last year? With Jakari Caldwell or Rico Powers, have they taken a step forward? There's so many storylines at those positions that that's probably where my attention will be.
Yeah, the offense is we keep. And I saw this in a report earlier today by one of your colleagues, a fine gentleman, very handsome, newly married man named Colin Taylor. There was the word blended or blending was in there, and we've heard that a lot. And we're actually going to speak to Pat DeMarco on our program on Wednesday, and Pat has been pretty involved in a lot of this as well. I think we could all agree it might be a little silly of the South Carolina staff to not include a 12-year NFL veteran in some of your meetings when it comes to schematics offensively. But the one thing I think what's most intriguing for me, Wes, is that you didn't have an offensive coordinator step in like they did last year with Mike Bobo, where we all kind of knew the Mike Bobo system, right? I mean, we knew that he was going to blend some things here and there. We knew that he was going to have to make some changes and make some adjustments. But Mike Bobo had a system, and there's probably a lot of that system that really helped Kevin Harris do what he did on the field as well. But I don't know that, like, as far as I understand, there isn't a system that they have just brought in. They're creating a system. So, I mean, I think it's kind of scary, but it's also kind of unique because it appears to me, Wes, and this is where I'm getting with you to let you kind of take it from here. It appears that nobody in that room, I mean, Marcus Satterfield is the leader, but nobody is saying this is how we're going to do this. It's like, hey, what do you have for how we can solve this problem? Are you kind of hearing the same things?
Yeah, and I think the biggest question there and the weight that is on Marcus Satterfield's shoulders is to take all these ideas and make it cohesive, right? And to blend it down into something that has enough elements that you have plays that complement each other, right? Like you can't just go out there and, on Madden, you could hit random play. You can't just go out there and do random play every time. And at work, plays have to complement other plays. So you have to have a lot of plays in your scheme to do that. But you can't have too many that, you can't say, well, I love this from this scheme, and I love this, and I love this, and I love this, to where your guys are just swimming and they can't execute it because they're thinking too much. So that to me is ultimately all these guys are going to have good ideas. all these plays they're going to put in are going to be plays that work, that you can draw up and on a board. Oh, that guy should be open in this scenario against this defensive coverage. The pressure on Satterfield is make all this make sense together. And I thought Heath Klein had a great question. He said, if fans were going to try to learn what your offense was going to be, what should they go search for on YouTube if they're trying to get ready for this season? And he said the first thing out of his mouth was pull up LSU 2019. So that's in line with what I've heard about this scheme. And you're laughing, but we're talking schematics.
I understand that.
Not production.
Yeah, you know what I'm laughing at, because people hear that and they're like, "Oh my God, we're going to have the LSU 2019 offense. We're never going to lose again."
Of the game
from a scheme standpoint. But that matches. We keep hearing recruits say, "Hey, it's a pro style offense." So he mentioned wanting Luke Doty, and Doty has been watching film of Drew Brees and how he operates in the pocket and how he operates in that offense. So I think that might be our starting point, y'all. Then the second thing he mentioned was Temple when he had PJ Walker, the dual threat quarterback.
Yeah.
So I think you start you start with that Joe Brady offense, and then you add in some dual threat elements to take advantage of Luke Doty's legs. Obviously, Marcus Satterfield has experience doing that at Temple. Then he said you should take a little bit from the Panthers last year. That's more Joe Brady, right? And a little bit from Oklahoma, throughout the Lincoln Riley time. So I think big picture, think Joe Brady scheme with a sprinkle of the Temple QB run, sprinkle of the Panthers, and a sprinkle of Oklahoma is what you're looking at from a big picture standpoint. Now, then this is why this is so fun, but why it's an open-ended thing. What can your guys execute?
Right.
So then for a season, you grind it down to what you think your guys can execute.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get down to the week of the game, and you take that and you grind it down to what can we execute this week? What works against this scheme we're facing? What works against the defensive backs we're facing? It starts big, and you start to just get smaller and smaller and smaller, I think. And to Craig, I see Craig commenting.
That's what he said that.
Marcus Satterfield got borderline offended at the idea of dinking into, like, you could tell the hatred in his eyes at the idea of just 2-yard pass here, 3-yard pass here. He said, we are not a West Coast offense. So all summer, the guys in their PRPs, the player run practices, the focus has been on the vertical passing game. So I don't think you're going to see an offense like you saw last year where it was short pass after short pass after short pass. Whether they hit them or not, they're going to be throwing the ball down the field.
I saw another member of the Good Hair Club, Mike Uva, interviewed former South Carolina offensive lineman Dennis Daly, who's I presume going to be a starter again this year up in Charlotte for the Panthers, and he was gushing over Marcus Satterfield, who by title was the assistant offensive line coach before accepting this position. Let me ask you this. If I said rank the most concerning to the least concerning, because we haven't seen any of this yet, so it's fair for fans to be concerned about the offense. Play calling, personnel, and the playbook. How would you rank those?
Oh God, y'all are putting me on the spot on that.
I know. I'm gonna send this video to Beamer too, just so you know.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean,
all right. Let's just talk about play calling for a second, because we've talked a lot about personnel. We know that they have to adjust to personnel. We know that they're building the playbook. How concerning is it that Marcus Satterfield hasn't called plays in this league?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I use the word concern, but I would say that's the thing everybody's going to wait and see, right? Like, That's fair to say. It's going to be a wait and see until you see it.
Yeah.
You know, Marcus Satterfield, there's no question he's a strong offensive mind. You know, we've all heard enough and seen enough. You can listen to the guy talk offense for 10 minutes and be like, the dude knows offense.
Oh, he knows it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a question whatsoever.
Right.
What's it actually going to look like on game day? Can he take the current personnel and package it up and call the right plays to give you a chance on Saturdays? Yeah, I think it's fair to say that that's a question until you see it, right? Until we see it happen. I mean, the thing I take away from Marcus Satterfield, the man does not lack confidence at all. I mean, you just listen to him talk. There's no lack of confidence in his ability, and there's no lack of confidence in his guys either. Now, I did notice, you know, he said, look, we can't ask the players to respect the process and trust the process if we don't, as coaches, do the same. And, you know, he acknowledged, hey, there's going to be times this offense looks like an NFL offense, and not from a scheme standpoint. He meant literally like it's going to execute very well. He's like, and there's going to be some times that it's not going to execute. So there is going to be a learning process here for everybody. And I feel better about South Carolina's prospects under Marcus Satterfield than I did when the hire was made, just because I didn't know anything about him personally at the time. The more you learn, the more you say, okay, this guy knows offense. Now, what it actually ends up being, it ain't easy in this league by any means. And you're starting out, frankly, playing catch up from a personnel standpoint compared to some of your peers and some of the teams you're playing. So we'll see. I do think he does have some guys to work with. You look at the running backs, you look at the tight ends, and you look at Luke Doty. I know people have their difference of opinions on Luke Doty, but y'all, we got to remember the kid has played 2.5 games as the starting quarterback. Marcus Satterfield straight up said Luke Doty can be an upper echelon quarterback in the SEC. When a coach says that, to me, that's not coach speak, because he easily could have just been like, yeah, you know, Luke's working really hard, or Luke's a talented kid. Luke has upside. He could have said any number of positive things without saying Luke Doty can be an upper echelon quarterback in this league. So I take him at face value when he says something like that he means it. He's high on Luke. And, you know, if we know what they have on the offensive line, I think we know what they have in the backfield. And I think I know what they have at tight end. So the question mark is wide receiver. But if Luke can be what Marcus Satterfield thinks he can be, and what I think he can be, then you actually may have the makings of an offense that could surprise this year.
I agree. I think it's, for the last 4 months, it's been incredibly unfair to Luke Doty, the folks who have judged any part of his career at South Carolina based on a spring game performance. It was laughable. And as you mentioned, he's played about 2.5, 3 games total. And it's funny how quickly, I mean, look, we can acknowledge the bad all we want to. You can acknowledge that cold, crappy night in Kentucky to end a dismal season. But you might want to also acknowledge the fact that he went 18 of 22 for 190 yards against Georgia, who was the 4th-ranked defense in the country last year. So, I mean, mixed results, sure, but we can't just say, well, he's bad without mentioning the good and without having no idea what's to come. So I think that was very well said. Wes, on that note, we'll let you run. Gamecock Central is where you want to go to get all your news and notes, and we got Media Day coming up on Thursday. I've got a feeling that the whole staff, your whole team, will be there doing player interviews and all those types of things, so we're looking forward to that. And then, of course, covering camp starting on Friday. And don't forget the party. We'll break it all down with our
Never
dance
forget
moves.
the party.
Yeah. You don't want to forget the party. It's less than 3 weeks away. It's 18 days. And Wes and Chris and Brian and Colin, they're going to throw the best damn party you can imagine. Kick off Carolina football season. Gamecock Central. All right. GC Live at 2 today?
Yep. GC Live, 2 o'clock. YouTube.com/Gamecock Central is the best way to watch it.
Well, and I saw, don't you have a hit coming up with Jay?
I do, 1:30. So
I mean, dude. I mean, does anybody pay you for this? Because I know we don't.
Hey, can we make that happen?
Yeah. We'll have a VIP section for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. We'll put you in the VIP section. Yeah, that's what we're gonna do.
What does that come with?
We'll
When you come into the studio for the show, you're in what's called the green room until I hit a button that brings you in, and only VIPs get to be in the green room. Wes.
Is there any whiskey jam available at the VIP?
Oh
room?
yeah.
You bring your own. Yeah, totally.
No. We do virtual jam around here.
Okay.
Virtual jam. We'll also send you a T-shirt and a sticker.
Hey, I love free T-shirts. So.
Thank you, Wes. Have a wonderful week, man. I'm glad football's
guys.
back. Thanks.
Yeah,
man.
y'all have a good one.
Thank you, Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. Time for a timeout. Oh, we're not done with the Gamecock stuff because we haven't talked to David Cloninger in a while, but we will talk to him next. I'm going to ask him, what does it mean to have Sterling Sharp publicly being right there in the thick of it for South Carolina and much more? You'll want to hear it right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Cloninger, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Cloninger, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Live, loud, and online.
105, final hour on this Monday afternoon. The JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, stokesvw.com. Make sure you follow us on social media at JB and Goldwater, individually at Sports Media JB, and at Darren Goldwater. Thanks to Wes Mitchell in that last report. And up next, A fine gentleman himself, one of the great writers we have in this state, covering the Gamecocks athletics department with the Post and Courier, Mr. David Cloninger. What's up, my friend?
No, not too much, James, but who's the gentleman you're speaking of? I generally don't get described in those terms. Miscreant, sure. Roustabout, yeah, okay. Ruffian, yeah, fine, but not gentleman.
Well, look, regardless of all the other hits that you do on radio and TV and stuff like that around the state, we treat our guests with kindness around here. We like you, so we speak truthfully about how we feel about you.
Oh, okay. So you got suckered into that woke culture too, huh?
No, it's just Jamie likes to keep everyone on good rapport with us. So he just, he blows smoke up everyone just to make everyone feel good.
That's true.
Oh, I see. Well, you ain't got to do that to me, man. I'm perfectly satisfied with my station life. And I also know that being from the great metropolis of Rock Hill, South Carolina, some people might look down on me. And to those people, I'll say, well, do you got your, mute button, Andy?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we got it.
Yeah. Well, I'll lay off at this particular point.
Hey, look, my cousin's from Rock Hill, and he's a great guy. So I'm a big fan of anybody that hails from that part of the state. It's probably Gamecock fans should be as well, because they get a lot of talent from Rock Thrill. For those that maybe haven't paid attention to the Clownies of the world over the last, however long. Speaking of former Carolina football players, DC, I tweeted something last week, and what I said was, it's great to publicly see Sterling Sharp engaged in this program. I mean, he jumped you. You might have a bone to pick with him, and I get it if you do. He jumped you on that first question at the golf tournament last week when it came time to asking Shane whatever you were going to ask him in the media session. So, and there were some tweets going out about that. Oh boy, DC, he's going to be a little ticked. But Sterling Sharp got in there, got the first question. He came and played. He's been pretty public over the last few months, if not longer than that, now about Shane Beamer and his support of this program, just tweeting little things like "Go Gamecocks." That's not something, DC, that's necessarily been happening for a long time with Sterling. I think a lot of people out there might understand some of what has happened with Sterling Sharp over the years and his relationship with the athletics department. All that seems to be mended. He seems to be very supportive of Shane Beamer as the head coach. So I'm wondering if you got a chance to catch up with Sterling last week, and also, what do you think this means to have one of the greatest wide receivers we've ever seen in this sport in this country now right back in the thick of it and supporting the Gamecocks?
Well, it's always great, Jamie, to have that kind of support, from not only the alums, but from your outstanding player alums. There's 4 individuals in the school's football history who got their names up on the side of that stadium with their number retired, and Sterling's one of them. Obviously, one of the greatest all-time talents that ever came through here. And he's a guy that a lot of people mistake his aloofness for just not wanting to be bothered. That's not the case at all. He's always been very supportive of the program. Now, me being a media member, it's always been tough for me to try to get him on the phone. In fact, I don't think I ever have. And not for lack of trying. I've called a lot of times. Messages go unreturned, and that's fine. It's just that with Sterling, it was always, listen, if anybody in that locker room wants to talk to me, there's my number. Anytime, anywhere. I mean, that is fine. So he's always been very supportive about it. Maybe he wasn't as demonstrative or as public about it, but, the past few years, it obviously hasn't been going very well around here. And USC had a few more important things to do, like field a winning football team, than maybe try to really have great alumni relationships. Now, that's not an excuse. That's not blaming anybody. That's just the way it was. So when Shane got here, of course, he wanted to reach out to the guys that had helped him here before. Sterling was one of those, because Sterling, whether you knew it or not, was instrumental in helping land some recruits from that time at USC. And that was the guy that Shane reached out to. And, of course, they have a great relationship now. So it's always great to have that, because kids will see it. And even if they don't know who Sterling Sharp was, they can look up and see his number in the stadium and in the operations building, and go on the internet and look up his records, which were amazing until, of course, he had the unfortunate neck injury. So that's always a good thing. As for him jumping me, well, hey, he's Sterling Sharp and I'm not. And he's got his number up on the stadium and I don't. But I'm just saying, he was at USC 5 years. I've been here more than 20. So, what's the deal? Just looking for my slice of the pie. That's all it is.
Your name is next.
I submitted my picture for that banner and they turned it down. So, all right, that's fine. I put side of the bread and the butter's off.
Did you take this up with Steve? What was his response to Sterling getting the first question?
I'm not going to bother him. He's got other things to do, with the media guy and all that kind of stuff. I went to the highest level, you see.
This is
here.
It's Coach Tanner's
we're
fault.
going to talk about who's done more for the school. Well, I'm sure Sterling's got to be there, but only by a little.
Hey, well, look, you could just be in the crowd of let's blame Coach Tanner. So we'll blame Coach Tanner for letting Sterling Sharp ask question 1. That's Coach Tanner's fault.
Well, I'm sure we'll go on somewhere, where you'll blame him for something.
That's right. Hey, I'm not
around here.
DC, I'm not sure if you saw this. I don't know, Darren, how long ago was this? Maybe a couple of months ago, but some doofus tweeted out. This was serious. I was like, let me make sure this guy's not joking. I think he tweeted out, or it might have been on a message board. I can't remember. Literally something about he cannot believe that the grass and the weeds were overgrown in the Gamecock Park across from the ballpark. And Coach Tanner, he just has lost it and he can't manage this anymore. I was like, I don't know that I've seen Coach Tanner on a lawnmower in 20 years or more. So I don't think it's his fault, but everybody finds a reason. So, God bless Coach Tanner. We'll just leave that there.
One of those people that you really want to respond to and say, hey, excuse me, what's it feel like to be an idiot? That's just how it goes sometimes.
That's where I want to use my mute button you were talking about, if that makes sense. Well,
I could put a colorful metaphor in between a couple of those words, but I refrained.
Dude, some people just don't have anything to do but complain.
I like the thought process, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm with you. I mean, I think what's been lost in this relationship that Sterling has had with the university for years is exactly what you said. If there was a player on that roster that needed Sterling Sharp, they could call him, and they knew that. But now it's public, and it's becoming like I'm lumping this in, DC, with the off-season energy that is supplying the program as they actually enter the season, where you actually got to go win the games and things like that. But nonetheless, like with everything that happened last year, it was just a drag and all the negativity. And then Will Muschamp is fired, and then you have the fan base who half want Shane Beamer and the other half don't. I mean, DC, as we enter the fall, they're going to start practice later this week. I don't know that, after they got through the assistant coaching stuff, David, I don't know that coming off of a combined 6 wins in 2 years that you could have much more momentum this year. This season, I think that this program with Shane leading it, and then these type of little things that are all adding up are the offseason has been about as good as it could possibly be. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody's gotten in trouble. You haven't had a mass departure as far as the transfer portal. I mean, everything seemingly has been positive.
Well, and thanks, Jamie. I'm over here knocking wood because the last thing you said.
I know. That was stupid.
My life more difficult. So thanks for that.
I get it.
But I mean, in terms of it, man, I mean, here's the interesting word, momentum, and that is a good word to describe kind of the groundswell of hope, excitement, enthusiasm that has really returned to the program that frankly has been missing ever since that debacle of an opener against North Carolina 2 years ago.
Good point.
Since then, it's pretty much just been waiting for the other shoe to keep dropping or yet another one. I mean, it often seemed like there was a giant with about 1,400 feet dropping shoes all over this program in the last 2 years. But that's what Shane's brought. It's excitement, it's enthusiasm, and it is hope that, hey, it's going to get better. Now, I think even the most passionate fan knows that the word you used, again, momentum, that might not translate into wins right away. In fact, it won't translate into wins right away. So there will be, some struggles. But right now, knowing that and knowing what you've been through the past 2 years, you couldn't be in a better place right now. You really couldn't, because it's like, listen, you're not going to talk about what's going to happen once the ball is teed up on September 4th and away they go, because you know you don't want to. And you really don't want to talk about the past. So you have to talk about the future. And you do talk about what you've seen from the fans. And you do talk about the success you're having on the recruiting trail and how energetic everybody is about the assistant coaches and all that kind of thing. That's what you have to talk about and sell right now. That's what keeps people engaged. Now, nothing against Will Muschamp, because he was there to do a job, very technical. His passion and knowledge of the game were evident. It just didn't come across very well in a public setting. It's always very businesslike. Nothing against it. That's the way he operated, fine. And it would have worked if he'd won more games. That's always the great equalizer. But with Shane right now, it's like, hey, you know, everything's great. And even he's mentioned a few times, it's great, but, you know, we're 0-0. So that's where it's really going to start coming in. Once they get to the season, once they get their ears pinned back, once they have a couple of losses in a row, which are all very likely to happen, it'll be like, okay, what's the fan reaction going to be now?
Mm-hmm.
How is the coaching staff handling it now? But right now, as we speak, it's in a very good place. So I don't know if I want to say momentum, just because that kind of has the connotation that, oh, it's going to result in this surprising dark horse season where they could challenge for the crown. Sure, that could happen. I mean, in the words of Billy Clyde Puckett, you know, the ball ain't round, and sometimes that thing will bounce real funny on you. It can happen. It's just the odds of that are probably pretty low, and I think you guys know that. But the good thing is that, as I said before, even the most passionate fans also know that. I saw a thread on the message board the other day that, you know, guys like, man, I'm calling you. It's going to be a great out-of-nowhere 8-win season. Most of our players are like, yeah, I appreciate your enthusiasm, man, but come on now. I mean, they're all just kind of like, you know, you're building for the future, and this one may be kind of rough. And if you just look at the odds, the schedule, the roster, you say it probably is going to be pretty rough. But you got to go play it, so we'll see.
David Cloninger posting Courier on Twitter at DCPNC. All right, let's talk about something nobody wants to talk about, and that's COVID. So South Carolina
barbecue sandwich part. I mean, because I'll go ahead and tell you, you know, you don't put coleslaw on barbecue.
I agree.
You don't.
I agree.
Okay. North Carolinians do that, and God gave them George Shinn as punishment. So let's just clear that there, right there. I know Wes Mitchell might have said something different, but Wes is from York, in York County, which for very good reason is called the county seat of York County and not Rock Hill. But that's a whole other topic. Anyway.
Well, it was a Yankee that started all this stuff. Yeah, I had to correct you.
All of a sudden, you got to start blaming Yankees.
Well, but we have to when it comes to ruining our barbecue.
Yeah, it happens.
You don't boil pizza.
That's right. That's right. All right, DC, let's get to this COVID stuff. I, you know, we hate to have the conversations, but here we are. So recently, Harris Pastides has announced that if you're going to be in a building on campus, you must have a mask on at South Carolina. Obviously, from a team standpoint, I'm sure those questions will be asked on Media Day as far as where they stand. Are they over that SEC threshold that will eliminate some of these testing procedures and things like that? I want to talk to you about it from the fan side, DC. I'm not sure how much you've poked around at this or what's to come, but, you know, I think people are now as excited as they are about getting back into ballparks and watching their teams play after a year off for most folks. There's now this concern maybe that, well, maybe it'll be mandated to wear masks in Williams-Brice Stadium and other places across the country. What are you hearing on the COVID front as it pertains to the team itself and as it pertains to policies regarding the fans?
Well, right now, Jamie, the team is in a good place. They're not 100% vaccinated, but they're right at, if they're not slightly over, the SEC mandated line of 80 to 85%. So that's a good thing. But in terms of going forward, in terms of stadium protocols, right now, as we speak, everything's status quo. Full attendance, Everybody's going to be there. Right now, you would probably be encouraged to wear a mask, or it may be worded as wear a mask if you feel inclined, but it's not going to be mandatory. That's right now. And that's all I can tell you, because that's all I know.
Okay.
They're not going to do anything until they absolutely have to, if they do that at all. And mostly it's because they don't want to have to backtrack and say, hey, it's not going to be good. Don't worry about your mask. It's 80,000. Everybody's cool. Don't worry about it. They don't want to reverse that at a later date.
Yeah.
So until there's said something otherwise, it's going to be, yeah, come on in, bring a mask if you feel comfortable. If not, no big deal. That's right now. But we all know what's going on out there. And I'm not going to get into the reasons of what you should or shouldn't do. It's your choice.
Right.
I don't want people telling me what to do. So fine, do whatever you want to do. But all you got to realize is this. Say you're out at, I don't know, the Village Idiot in Columbia, South Carolina, and you run into a player and you talk to him, and unknowingly you pass him the virus, and now he's out. This is the kind of thing that you're always going to have to worry about, because these guys aren't going to be kept in a bubble. They're not going to be as isolated as they were last year. And it's going to be a case of, well, if it happens, it happens. And this time you don't get a replacement game. It's forfeit. So I want to think about that. Of course, I'm only speaking to a certain segment of the population. That's the ones who live here in Columbia. But this is a case. This is where things can happen. And with the unvaccinated members of the team, again, it's their choice. I'm not telling them what to do. They do whatever they like. But it will be a case of, well, if there's a position group out, you can't play. So I'm anxious to see what's going to be in place on Monday. How many kids got their mask around their neck so they can put it up when they got their helmet off? How many coaches have got their masks on? I know at Media Day on Thursday, the media is all required to wear a mask, and that's perfectly fine. I'm cool with that, because we're going to be right up close with these kids. They haven't said anything about the regular weekly availabilities yet, but we'll see what happens once we get in there, because indoor practice field where we're doing media day, it's big, it's airy. Okay, you got a lot of room to operate. But if we go back to our regular meeting room in the ops building up there in the team defensive room, that's kind of close quarters. So what's going to be the deal there? Because let me tell you, Jamie, I mentioned this in my newsletter that's going out today. The last thing that any reporter wants to see is when you say, yeah, so-and-so's out for the game on Saturday, and we think it's because a reporter talked to him and he got contact traced.
Right.
I mean, we're hated enough already. We don't need that on to the file. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this virus carries on for the next couple of months and how it gets back into football, because it seems to be we're all so fully into the full speed ahead, damn the torpedoes, we're going, that we haven't started to think, yeah, but what if?
Yep.
So I know everybody wants to think this thing is over. It looked like it was, but it's not. So again, you do whatever you want to do. I'm not here to talk politics, but there is a difference between I'm going to be stubborn and I need to do the right thing for the rest of the people around me. Make that choice. It's not any skin off my back, but the more that can happen so we can lick this thing, is the better we're all going to be.
Well, and to be clear, per SEC policy this year, it appears, DC, that if you, as a team or as a program, miss a game that is COVID related, that game will not be made up. That will be a forfeit. Is that right?
That's right. They have not used the exact term forfeit, but the commissioner did have a direct quote to say that game will not be rescheduled. So you call it whatever you want. But if you don't have your roster minimum and your position group minimum, you don't play that day, and that means it's not on the schedule. So whether they call it a loss or whether they just say, well, you're just not going to play as many games, I don't know that answer. But apparently they're going to have these things for standings and consideration's sake. So it's going to be like, listen, you got to have it or you don't play, just like last year. But just unlike last year, you don't get a makeup date.
A final couple of minutes, DC. Again, with Media Day coming up on Thursday, it appears that that Steve has, or Shane, whoever, the Gamecock football program has pretty much made available anybody that you want to speak to. Freshmen are on the table, which is great. I'm sure you're excited about that. Who are you most looking forward to speaking with this week, and why?
Well, there's quite a few guys that I've requested, and some are, guys that I've known on the team for a while, want to catch up. Some are guys who are expected to be contributors. I do want to talk to Luke Doty and get a full detailing of his leadership role, about what he's been doing over the offseason. I want to talk to DeCarrion Joyner and see if, I know what the answer is going to be, but I do want to ask, hey, man, is this finally going to be the year that we see what you truly can do? Because we all know it. And for other extenuating circumstances, he just hasn't been given that chance to show it yet. I want to talk to E.J. Jenkins, see what kind of role they have him, because, he was really working with the tight ends through spring ball, but he's still listed as a receiver. So what's going on there? And, of course, you want to talk to Marshawn Lloyd and Kevin Harris and say, can you repeat if you've got another guy as good as you in the backfield? Is that a problem if you don't? Can you legitimately run a two-back offense in this day and age? There's going to be all kinds of topics. But, probably the person I'm really want to speak to the most is Parker White.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say, let me ask you something, man. Have you talked with Elliott Fry yet? Because when you beat his record at the end of the year and you're the all-time leading scorer in the history of this university, but you got an extra year to do it, is he going to argue that you got to put an asterisk up there or something? What? How's that going to work out? But, it's well-deserved if it happens. He's 70 points away, but that's going to be a storyline that we're definitely going to talk about now and then revisit later in the season. But, yeah, that'd be something. If a former walk-on kid who didn't even play football his freshman year ended up being the all-time leading scorer.
From Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, I might add. Wando High School, everybody. Parker White is an interesting case when it comes to looking at this year's team, and we'll get into more of this as we get a little bit closer, DC. But, Shane has mentioned multiple times in conversations that he's had with guys like you in the media that he's known, if you're good in the trenches and you're good on special teams, you give yourselves a chance. And I think that they feel pretty comfortable about where they are in the trenches, both offensively and defensively. And they seem fairly comfortable on the special team side. But the one thing that we always think about with special teams is punting and kicking field goals. And you got a guy who's been there a while, and Parker White, who got really thrown into the fire his freshman year, but he's still the dude, and he's got a hell of a leg. We all know that. So if he has a good year, there's DC. I mean, can't we make the argument that, you could be looking at either 4 wins or 6 wins or 5 wins or 7 wins or something like that based on maybe 1 or 2 kicks that happen or don't happen this year?
Well, you can make that argument for anything, Jamie. I mean, you can say if you'd have just gotten the kickoff return there in the fourth quarter, you'd have won. I don't want to play the what-if game.
You know what I mean. How close some of these can be.
I mean, it's come down to some kicks over the past few years, and Parker White has made those. There was the Mizzou game in the rain. There was the La Tech game at home, where he made those game-winning kicks, and that's always great. I think that last year he was put in a lot of situations where he personally couldn't win. I've mentioned this many times, but you don't need to send him out to kick a 50-yarder. It's nothing against the want to. It's nothing against the effort or the belief. It's just physically he has shown that he's not capable of doing it. It's like asking me to be a yoga instructor, I can't do it. So why do you keep asking him to do it? It was sheer idiocy, honestly. So just don't do that. just don't do that, at least until he gets a few kicks under his belt, and then say, hey, from 49 on in, you got it, man. It's yours. And he can go out there and do that for you. So if you know that you have a pretty much automatic answer, that's always going to help you. Mm-hmm. It really helps you be more comfortable when you're calling those plays, especially late in the game, and say, I got my guy.
Yeah,
I got my guy. If we're 3 points down, we're going to get it. So you look at the numbers and you say you trust him. You also trust your punter, Kai Kroger. Of course, you don't want to have to see him all that often, so that means you're not scoring, but you're going to have to use him. So Those are always the guys that you need to count on. And honestly, it's one less or two less things to worry about in this preseason camp. I think we all know, Jamie, the Gamecocks got to find answers to wide receiver and defensive backs and linebacker. You got to make sure that your quarterback is going to be good for you. That's 4 questions, and normally you might only have to deal with 2 of those. And there are 4 questions that, could have a whole lot of answers, and not all of them are good.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things that they got to find out this preseason camp. Those are the things. If you know that you've got your place kicker set, your punter set, you're good to go. And those 2 guys have been here. Parker's been here for 5 years now, really 6 if you count his freshman year where he didn't play. And he knows. And that's the kind of guy, like Ray Tanner said, without stripes on his sleeve, that you want to depend on. And he's been that guy. So I look forward to him continuing to be that guy. And if he gets 70 points or more, we'll call up Elliott Fry and be like, okay, man, what's going to be the deal here?
That's right.
You guys going to line up at the 50 and kick?
That's right.
One of your legs falls off or what?
That's right. A kickoff, like literally a kickoff between those 2.
Penalty kicks.
Yeah, man. Just be like, here's where the name is going to be on the stadium. Which one of you guys can nail that with a football?
That's right.
First one that does it gets their name up there.
That's right. That's right.
That'd be an enjoyable event to cover. I mean, I'm sitting here saying I don't want that to happen.
I think there should be like a national kicking contest. It'd be awesome. I think it'd be cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure Elliott, hopefully he's going to be very busy in the NFL this season. I mean, he's at training camp, and hopefully he sticks. But that would be something to see. Elliott lives in Mount Pleasant now.
Yeah.
So we can technically call it 2 Mount Pleasant kids going for the title.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, maybe there will be a story about that in the Post and Courier in the foreseeable future. Maybe
you think there might be.
Maybe we're foreshadowing. Who knows? Who knows? You'll have to pay attention.
Well, I mean, it's those last few days you kind of feel like a kid on Christmas, and especially this year because last year it was, geez, is there even going to be a season?
Right.
Just didn't know. And there was so much about COVID this, COVID that, new schedule, new this, new that, what's going on. And so by the time it got started, you were like, man, you wrote everything by saying, hopefully this stands pat. Well, they got through the whole season and COVID didn't affect them. That was a good thing. It was a lousy season, but at least there wasn't COVID, postponing games. So this year, you hope you don't have to worry about that. But this year, it's all about can't wait to get back out there on Friday morning. We only get 15 minutes, but it's going to feel great. Just watching the kids and being in person and saying, okay, I don't have to do this through a computer screen.
Yeah.
So, I know there's a lot of people like me who are more fortunate than me as in coaches who got to be out there still doing it last year. But, now, just at the golf outing the other day, it was great to see everybody, in person. The last time we did that was a year ago, last March.
Jeez.
When we were all in the baseball media room. Mark Kingston had just finished previewing the weekend series against Tennessee that was about to start that next day. And then just as he got done, he was leaving, his phone pinged. He came back in and said, oh, by the way, fellas, our series just got postponed.
Yeah.
I'll let you know about the season. 30 minutes later, the season was gone.
Well, we appreciate those memories.
Yeah.
Thanks for that.
Great memories.
Hey, I will to wrap this thing up though. Is there how did the Beamer tournament compare versus the Spurrier golf tournaments?
Oh, well, I mean, I never play. I'm not a golfer. So but apparently a good time was had ball, was scalding hot. Shane was entertaining, before, after, and during his press conference. And, lunch was good, and everybody got a free swag bag with some gift cards and a shirt. And so, it was terrific. It was a good mostly I said the best compliment I could pay is it's just like old times.
That's awesome.
That's a good thing. So, it was really good to have that back out there again. I mean, Shane could brush up on his one-liners a little bit, but, I appreciate that he doesn't really try to, because if you're going to try to be like Spurrier, man, it's just not going to work.
No.
Nobody could be that.
No.
It's good that he's got his own thing. He's got good answers, and he talks about all the issues, and the best thing I remained hearing, everybody's good. Everybody's healthy going into preseason camp. I'm like, good. If I go out there Friday morning and I don't see one yellow jersey, I'm going to be happy.
Well, we just got, and again, I'm not trying to ping on anybody because on a personal level, I like this. I like the former, but we heard that a lot around here the last 5 years. Oh yeah, we're good. And then, well, what happened to so-and-so? Oh, he's out for the season. Oh, but what? 48 hours ago, he was fine. Yeah. So hopefully that's not the case with Shane. I think he'll be a little bit. I will say this. I'm not going to say who it was or who they named, but I did ask somebody who was playing in the tournament who can play a little bit, who was the worst player out there. So I now know who the worst media member golfer is, and apparently this person is really, really bad. So if you played and you were worse than them, then you'd be really, really bad.
Can we get like a list of possibilities to who that answer is? Can we get a multiple choice here? Yes.
I can send you the list of who all competed, but you'll have to do your own sleuthing from there. I didn't examine scores. So.
I have the list of who competed and who's in the groups. I could give you a hint, but I'll just say it. The member is a member of the Columbia media. So we'll say that.
Oh, well,
but we'll leave it there.
That was such derision, man. I mean, I could just see the sneer on your face through the phone line. The Columbia media.
We're in Charleston.
Kind of same thing. Talk to me and say, well, when I was at Kentucky, I'm like, what? What about it? Go listen to the word alma mater sometime, and you tell me who's more cultured in this equation.
Hey, well, we know who it wasn't. It wasn't you because you didn't play. So that's all that matters.
Yeah. I don't play. I do not play golf. Only sports writer on earth who doesn't play golf and doesn't drink coffee. So.
Oh God, I can't survive without coffee anymore, especially when I have to look at Darren for 2 hours.
Yeah, right.
Never could drink this stuff.
Yeah, just put some Baileys in it. You'll be fine. All right, DC, tell us about the newsletter and how people can subscribe.
Yeah, it's called Gamecocks now. There's one actually that just popped. I'll be tweeting out a link here in a few minutes. But pretty much, if you sign up, if you're already a PNC subscriber, it's only going to cost you $1 more per month. And if you're just a new subscriber, it'll cost you $5.99 per month. But with that, you'll get all the access to our USC content in the paper and in the newsletter. The newsletter will be emailed to you. It doesn't appear in actual print. And you'll also get all of our Clemson news and newsletter. Our newsletter there will be launching in a couple of weeks. We just welcomed our new Clemson writer, John Blau, to the staff, so he's getting started, but he's going to start putting his out pretty soon. So you do all that, it's all there, and I can offer a few riffs like this instead of the standard story style for the paper. And there's a 2-week free trial, so you can read it for 14 days, which will probably get you about 12 editions of the newsletter. And if you don't want to after that, that's cool. But if not, I'd love to have you.
And it's Gamecocks Now. That's the correct name, right?
Yes.
Perfect.
Gamecocks Now.
Well, now is time for football. Media Day coming up on Thursday, Friday. They'll start practice in Columbia. I've got the full practice schedule here, and we'll probably go through some of that tomorrow. But, DC, we certainly look forward to following along the rest of the week and right on through August as the Carolina football program gets ready to crank it up here in just about a month. We'll get you back on here pretty soon and check in with some of these camp storylines. Thank you, man. Thank you so much as always. And we'll talk to you soon.
No problem, guys. Thanks for having me.
There you go, David Cloninger with the Post and Courier. Yeah, it was. I got a full report. See, I knew I should have played. I'll play next year.
Would you have been worse than whoever came in?
No,
yes. Okay.
No, I wouldn't have. I'm not good. I'm not good, but I'm not like the way this was being described to me. I was like, ooh,
like Barkley-esque.
It was bad.
Swing and it's still ugly, but at least the ball goes straight. Barkley-esque.
From what I hear, it was pretty bad. Yeah. So, but I'll tell you who's really, really good. Pat DeMarco. It shouldn't be shocking. His uncle is Chris DeMarco. But Pat's like really good. Like if he probably could have been a professional golfer. But he's going to join us at 12:30 on Wednesday. J.C. Sherbert will not be with us this week. He's on vacation, so we're not going to bother him while he's in the Dirty Myrtle. But Pat we will bother him in the Midlands. So he'll join us at 12:30 coming up on Wednesday. Also, next Monday, we'll start our segments back with Perry Orth. This coming Friday, we'll start our segments back with Michael Flint. And I believe next week we'll start our segments back with Reggie Merriweather.
Nice.
With Clemson as well. So certainly looking forward to getting my old pal back there. Reggie's one of the great dudes. And he just tells it like it is. So we love having Reggie on. So football is certainly in it's full throttle here on our program moving forward. Except for on the other side of this break, we do need to get to some Olympic stuff. This Kumar Rocker situation is really interesting. And I'll tell you why he's not going back to Vanderbilt. Where is he going to go? There's only a couple of options on the table. You'll hear those and more on the JB and Goldwater show when we return.
This is Mike Mazzell for Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road with exciting news. It's springtime and we're playing ball. Most dealerships don't have any inventory, but at Stokes Volkswagen we do. So we're playing ball on every new Volkswagen in stock. Every new Volkswagen available with zero down. Qualified buyers can sign and drive with interest-free financing for 60 months. Remember, Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road is the fastest, easiest way to sell your car and get the most money for your trade. Plus, we'll take any trade in any condition, paid off or not. Is your credit in a slump?
Strike two.
If you've got $500 down and you make at least $2,000 per month, our lenders can get you approved. So if you want to strike out, that's okay. But if you want to hit a home run and save on a new Volkswagen, come see us today at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate Road or StokesVW.com.
$1,666 per month per $1,000 borrowed for 60 months at 0% APR with zero down. Plus tax tag. Includes $499.50 administration fee. Subject to VCI credit approval. Expires month end.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Wando Power Equipment, the trusted home of Hustler zero-turn residential and commercial mowers. There is nobody more trusted in South Carolina than our friends from Wando Power Equipment. They've been providing elite commercial and residential service for over 30 years. Landscape Services have turned to their selection of Hustler zero-turn mowers like the Raptor. Bigger, stronger, faster, and the most durable Raptor Hustler has ever designed. Located on Daniel Island and online at wandopower.com. Wando Power Equipment, owned by the Price family, the home of Hustler zero-turn mowers, rentals, service, and specializing in family and friendship.
Shrimping season's back. That means local caught shrimp. That's right, local caught shrimp back on the menu at the Dog and Duck. All three locations, Bell Hall, Park West, and Clements Fair Road, now featuring once again local caught hand-breaded shrimp, plus other daily specials like the Game Day Burger every Wednesday, Rib Night on Friday, rotating taps all the time, and all the TVs you can possibly imagine for whatever you want to watch. The Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road. Okay, what's going on today, huh? Anything to talk about?
All right, greetings and a good Monday afternoon. Greetings and a good Tuesday afternoon. Greetings and a good Wednesday afternoon, and welcome aboard. All right, greetings and a good Thursday afternoon. Greetings and a good Friday afternoon, and welcome aboard. Okay, final segment on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back to the JB and Goldwater show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Real quick, this is something we'll definitely bring up with DeMarco on Wednesday. According to some sources out there, the Buffalo Bills may be interested in moving the franchise out of Buffalo into Austin, Texas, if they can't come up with a new deal with the city to finance a new ballpark. ESPN's Seth Wickersham has tweeted, an ownership source tells me that Austin is a possible destination or threat as one of the other cities elsewhere that desire an NFL franchise and would pay handsomely for it, end quote. Some of the reports out there, again, probably need to see some of this confirmed. Mentioned Orlando, Sacramento, Portland. But I think the one thing that would kind of bother me about this a little bit is, so right now, Highmark Stadium, where Buffalo plays, and Buffalo, their agreement ends in 2023. And that ballpark's been around since 1973, so they've renovated a bunch. But what's bothersome here, Darren, is they want a fully taxpayer-funded new ballpark. Look, I get it. Sometimes taxpayer dollars are going to go towards these things. It's for the betterment of the town and things of that nature. But I mean, we're not talking about $1 million here. We're talking in today's terms $1 billion or more. And you're asking all the town to pay that. I don't know that I see that. If you're an owner, I feel like you should probably be willing to chip in something. Maybe you split this thing half and half. I don't know, but if I was a taxpayer and someone said, "Well, do you love the Bills?" Yeah. Well, then you're going to need to pay us your money to keep them here.
That fan base is as loyal as any other fan base in football. And you can put them up there with as loyal and passionate as just about any fan base, period.
Oh,
Buffalo,
yeah.
The Bills aren't leaving Buffalo. This is all posturing. I don't know what the end game is. I don't know if there's more renovations coming to that stadium because I feel like it was relatively recent, the latest round of renovations. Buffalo is not turning its back on the Bills. The Bills are not turning their back on Buffalo. I don't know how this shakes out. The Bills are staying in Buffalo. There was a thought this year, maybe next year, as they were looking for a place, they might need additional place to play their game for whatever reason. Penn State was even floated as a possibility for some Bills home games this year or next year. It's not happening. But anyway, they're not leaving Buffalo. There's no way that's going to happen.
I agree. I don't think that would happen. It just always catches me off guard when an owner who makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year turns around and looks at all the folks who are just trying to pay their bills and tells them that they need to fund the ballpark. I'm not a big fan of that.
They like to play these things out in the media.
Yeah.
They like to start pitting the sides against each other. They're bargaining. They've hit the bargaining table in public.
I hope that's the truth. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But we'll ask Pat about that. Pat played for quite a few years up there with the Buffalo Bills. All right, the Olympic medal count, 64 medals for the United States right now. That is 2 ahead of China, but China has 29 golds to the U.S.'s 22. Of course, swimming has been the key cog for Olympians that represent the United States over the last few days. Once again, the pool has been their friend when it comes to medal counts. Another special weekend for U.S. swimmers. Really, truly awesome to see. Also, Japan has beaten the U.S. in baseball to reach the semifinals. 7-6 is the final there. However, the U.S. is not out of this. They're just in the losers bracket of the double elimination second round, but they can reach the final, but they'll have to beat the winner of Tuesday's elimination game between the Dominican Republic and Israel. They've already beaten Israel. And then they would have to beat the loser of Japan and South Korea. So they can win their next 2 games and then still get into the final this weekend and maybe have a chance at a gold medal. So we have to keep our eyes on American baseball. USA's Jade Carey has won gold in the women's gymnastics floor exercise. Congratulations to her. Speaking of gymnastics, it appears Simone Biles will return for one more event. I think that's the what do they call that thing?
The beam, I believe, is what he is doing.
The beam, yeah. The beam. What's the other one? The horse, the
pommel horse. That's a men's event because
that's only a men's event, right?
Yeah, it takes absurd upper body strength for that.
Yeah, well, I the pommel horse and the balance beam, for whatever reason, I always mix those two up.
And then the vault is the other one that's more stationary and you bounce and flip off of.
Dude, that pommel horse thing, I don't know how those dudes' arms aren't popping off. That's crazy.
It's fun to watch, but it's nuts.
Yeah, it is wild stuff, man. The U.S. women in basketball did beat France 93-82. They are 3-0. Some have thought that they didn't look or haven't looked as good as maybe were expected to look through the first 3 games. But Dawn Staley and Asia Wilson are 3-0. And the U.S. women's basketball program has reached the quarterfinals. I have not seen yet their next opponent. Yes, they just announced it a little while ago. So they've got Australia. The next challenge for the U.S. is Australia. And I believe that's coming up here later. I don't know. I guess in the next couple of days. So they've got Australia.
Yeah,
I'm
not sure of the exact schedule for them.
Yeah, I'm trying to calculate it in my head, but I can't quite get it down. Just check your Olympic schedule. Australia, though, has never beaten the U.S. In the Olympics. So could be 4-0. Asia Wilson led the team in scoring again, 22 points. So congratulations to those ladies. The U.S. women's soccer team, they have lost to Canada 1-0. They're going to play for the bronze medal. They have looked pretty awful by U.S. women's standards throughout this thing, and this came back to bite them this time. The Canadians have shut down the Americans, so we'll see if they can at least bring home a medal. It would be bronze if they can do it, and there you go. That's a little bit of an update from Tokyo.
And some local shout-outs. Raven Saunders get the silver in the shot put, and Camacho Quinn, Fort Dorchester, sister of Robert Quinn, he of North Carolina. And where is he now? Is he with the Bears now? I think he's with the Bears right now. She wins gold in the 100-meter hurdles.
Yeah, it was that was really neat. The Low Country well represented. She is representing Jamaica, right? Camacho Quinn, is it Jamaica?
That or Colombia, or Puerto Rico.
Might be Puerto Rico. It's somewhere down in the Caribbean area.
Yes, it is. It is somewhere else. One of the parents, either the mother or the father, is native to another country, so she is able to perform or represent that country. I want to say Puerto Rico, but I'll double check.
Okay, yeah, but still, nonetheless, she broke the world record in the 100-meter hurdles. I think is what it was.
Yeah, Puerto Rico.
So yeah, heck of an Olympic Games for both of those ladies. Really, really, really cool to see. By the way, I'll share tomorrow an Olympic story that is family related. That is really, really cool. I'm looking forward to sharing this publicly. I don't think I've ever said this, and it's got a direct tie to Tokyo. So just keep that in mind.
Very cool.
Kumar Rocker is not signing with the Mets. The deadline now has passed. He is not signed. He was expected to sign for roughly $6 million, DC, but that's not going to happen. And so what are Kumar Rocker's options? By the way, the why in that is because of some issues that they found in a physical that pertain to his future regarding arm issues. So the Mets have elected to not sign the Vanderbilt right-hander. He could go back to Vanderbilt, but he's not going back to Vanderbilt, according to Scott Boras, his agent. So don't plan to see him in the SEC next year, and the rest of the SEC is probably exhaling for that. Now, where can he go? Well, he can go to Japan. But if he goes to Japan, based on the latest collective bargaining agreement, he's not going to be able to come back and basically take advantage of full free agency until 2027 in the United States. So you're looking at 5 or 6 years in Japan under basically a different umbrella before you can transfer that, because of his age, back to the United States. Fair, unfair, doesn't matter what any of us think. This is the collective bargaining agreement as agreed on by Major League Baseball's ownership and Major League Baseball's players.
Yep.
So Kumar Rocker can do that, but he won't be back for a while. Or he could play indie ball. And if he does play indie ball, he will open up a couple of future options from that. Could you imagine him in independent ball? I mean, the SEC is better than some of the independent leagues, not to be rude, but it's true.
Not unprecedented. If a player in a similar spot would end up in independent ball, he could also not play, depending on how bad the arm is and what is necessary to fix it. Because whatever the Mets found, the rest of the league knows about. We don't exactly know about it yet, but the rest of the league knows. So come next draft, unless this thing gets fixed or they can prove that the Mets were crazy and it didn't need to be fixed, then he'll have an issue next draft. So that, I think it's indie ball if he does anything, but the prospect of is he going to play at all is very much on the table.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. So you have to wonder if there's some posturing going on here. His agent is Scott Boras. I know somebody who was a client, who still is, as a matter of fact, a client of Scott Boras. Okay. So Scott Boras is the most profitable, most lucrative agent in the history of the sport of baseball. Period. It's not even close. Scott Boras, his primary goal forever, since he has been an agent, is to get you paid and to get that money guaranteed. Okay. So the Mets here didn't want to guarantee themselves in a $6 million investment, and God knows what would come after that if there happened to be some type of major issue that they would have to pay for, and then this stretches this thing out even longer. Who knows? They didn't want anything to do with it. This is probably the biggest college name out there, boys and girls, and they didn't sign him. So if you're Scott Boras, you're protecting the interest of your client, which is, I got to find a way to get you signed so I can get you paid right now. Whether that is because I don't believe there's anything wrong with you based on the information we have, or it's because of, there's a problem and you're okay for now, but if we can get you guaranteed money, at least you're set from a financial standpoint. I have no idea which side it is, but it's got to be one or two. And so he's going to probably try to get him some money, Darren. But to your point, if the rest of baseball knows what the issue is, and that issue isn't fixed before the 2022 draft, Kumar Rocker could be left kind of sitting on his hands here. So they're in it. The Mets have put them in a tricky spot.
Yeah. It's tough to say if the Mets put them in a tricky spot or if they put themselves in a tricky spot. The Mets made a big mistake in coming to this handshake $6 million agreement and then allowing that to be public. Whether the Mets leaked it, whether Boras and company leaked it, the more I put the dots together, the more I'm lean to think, well, probably Boras and company leaked this to pressure the Mets into actually signing Rocker despite whatever they think is wrong. The other way Boras can get Rocker paid is simply in endorsements. That's why I didn't rule out completely a return to Vanderbilt. I'm not sure. Well, it's NIL now. It's not high school. So he can go back to Vanderbilt and he can be eligible and he can get an NIL deal. He can also be completely done with Vanderbilt and he can be a professional, whether playing or not, baseball player with a multi-million-dollar endorsement deal with Adidas or Mizuno or Rawlings or anybody. So that's the other way they can go. If I'm Scott Boras now, that's my first line of thinking. Let's figure out the baseball thing here in a second. Let's get you a deal now. Because regardless of where you play or if you play this year, you're going to be a massive name in the draft next year. So let's get you paid now. Let's profit off that now. We'll figure out the arm. We'll see what that issue is, and we'll see if you can play prior to the next draft.
My question is, why not go back to Vanderbilt? And Boras is stern on it. He's not going back to Vanderbilt. So that tells me that there's more to this.
Yeah.
Like if you're not going to let him go back and pitch in college, where he's not going to get worse, he's only going to get better. If you're not going to go back and let him pitch in college, with what you said, with NIL and the fact that he's not going to drop outside of the top 4 or 5 picks next year, why? Why not? And if he wants to get him paid right now, he's looking to secure the future of his client, because I truly feel like there's maybe more to this
and
from a health standpoint.
So with that, why not go back to Vanderbilt? What if the doctors, while I'm sure they're excellent down there, it is a renowned hospital at Vanderbilt. So I'm sure they're excellent, and the team doctors and physicians, I'm sure they're wonderful. But it is also possible that Rocker and his team, Boras, want that arm, whatever the issue is, fixed by someone not at Vanderbilt. And I think if you're pitching there, if you're on scholarship there, you're probably obligated to some degree to use who they tell you you're going to use.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know guys that have had arm issues in South Carolina. They got surgery by Dr. Andrews. So, I'm not sure how that works necessarily. It might be different in Vanderbilt. I literally don't know. But I'm just saying, if they're trying to get him money instead of saying, forget it, then we'll just go back to Vanderbilt and go pitch for another year. We don't have anything to worry about. That tells me we have something to worry about. We got to find a way to get you some cash.
Yeah, there's more to the story we don't know yet. The fact that he did not sign means that there's something wrong. Yeah. Because Boras taking something to the deadline, that's what he does with every single client he has.
Yeah. Well, so, you'd like to think with Boras too, Darren, like if you miss that deadline, that $6 million deadline, there's something up his sleeve, right?
There's something wrong. That he couldn't get the deal done because there's something wrong. That's what it tells me. Because 9.8 times out of 10, he's taking it up to the deadline, and they're going to get a deal done. Whether it's $6 million, 5.8, whatever it is, he's going to get a deal done. The deal did not get done.
No.
Something is wrong.
There's nothing wrong with an ice cream sandwich. It's National Ice Cream Sandwich Day.
Oh, right on.
How about Mike Morgan and Gene Sapikoff tomorrow? 9-game SEC schedules. We'll talk about that. Getting closer and closer to football. Pat DeMarco at 12:30 on Wednesday. Looking forward to that. Thanks to David Cloninger and Wes Mitchell today, and as always, thanks to Darren and all of you. Are we all happy, boys and girls? Can't you smell the football, the tailgating? It's in the air. We'll be back tomorrow at noon on the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.